Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I am talking to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our communities. What do they do to get started, and what are they doing to stay there? How do they continue to accelerate in the leadership lane? And today I have another special guest as we're in season 2, 2021. Today I'm getting to talk to my good friend, Daniel Bogard. He goes by Danny. He's a MHR, he's a PHR, he's a SHRM CP, he's an HR director for Warren Equipment Companies. He's also a speaker, and I'm super excited to have you on the show today. Hey, Danny, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm great, Bruce. Thanks for having me today.
Listen, I was reflecting. You put a post up just not too long ago, and I was reflecting the last time I actually got to see you, and I think it was actually the Oklahoma City Disrupt HR event. I don't know, I guess that was a couple of years ago. And so it's been forever. So I'm so excited to see you, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to see you too. It has been, this October will be 2 years. Can you believe that?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I remember at that event, mutual friends of ours. So Kyle Killingsworth, I think he's actually the first person that introduced me to you.
Yes.
I got to sit at your table, and of course, the great Rebecca Hartwig was sitting there as well. So let's give a shout out to Oklahoma City HRS today.
Absolutely. all the Hartwig staff.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Great people. Listen, I wanted to have you on the show today because we're going to talk leadership. But in particular, you gave a presentation at the Oklahoma City HRS event, virtual event, summer of 2020, when everybody's trying to figure out this pandemic, this remote work, and you gave a presentation around well-being, and I was so fascinated by it, and I want to talk about that today as we are continuing in 2021 to navigate through this world of work. But before we get started, I would love for you to share just a brief highlight of your organization, and that is Warren Equipment Company. Share a little bit about that.
Sure, absolutely. So Warren Equipment Company is been around, well, it has been around since 1975. So a lot of people don't recognize Warren Equipment Company. They're like, who's that? Warren Equipment Company is actually the parent company of Warren Cat. So we are the Caterpillar dealer for West Texas and Oklahoma. And then we also have some smaller entities, Global Compression Services and Sci-Tech Texoma. Is just a couple of those, and I've been with them since 2013, and I'm the director of HR. We've got about 1,600 employees.
You've got a fantastic team, and so I wanted to really start the show. I love to start by just letting the viewers and the listeners know a little bit more about you, and I would love for you to just share the Danny Bogard story. Like, where did you grow up, and how in the world did you get into HR?
Oh my gosh, I kind of stumbled into it like most people, right? Somebody threw me in and I got baptized by fire a little bit. So my story kind of starts with, it's all about who you know, right? Networking is so important. And I was born and raised in Oklahoma. I went to high school in Southwest Oklahoma City. So shout out to any Westmore people. I went to OU in Norman for a while. I did not graduate from there though. And I'll tell you why here in just a few minutes. So in high school, I was introduced to two gentlemen who owned a pager and cell phone store at the time. Now this was 1995, right?
I was going to say, so, what's a pager?
Yeah, I'm going to date myself a little bit. So of course my parents thought I was a drug dealer when I came home with a pager, and I was like, no, I work for them, Mom and Dad. It's okay. So I started in wireless really, and those two gentlemen helped me discover kind of my passion for technology. And I met a lady named Jan Lobb, and Jan lives in Tulsa, and she's actually a director for the Oklahoma Blood Institute now. But Jan worked for the regional paging carrier who we bought airtime from, and it's a long story how it all works, but we bought airtime from them. So I met Jan, and I actually went to work for Jan at that regional paging carrier. And then Jan left and went to work for a company called Nextel Communications.
Mm.
And so one morning at OU, while dreading going to my 7 a.m. accounting class I didn't really want to go to, I got a call from Jan, and Jan said, hey, meet me for lunch. And I said, poor college student, will do. I'll be there, Jan. So I met Jan for lunch, and she walks in and puts this, what looked like a brick on the table. And I said, what in the world's that? And she said, it's my Nextel phone. And so she explained to me what it was, and she said she needs somebody to work for in Oklahoma City. And so I said, okay. So that really kind of started my career. And then after working with Nextel for a couple of years, they moved me to Austin, Texas. And that's really where I got my start in human resources. Sean Reed, who is the HR director for Nextel at the time, recognized that this 23-year-old from Oklahoma had the ability to train people on product systems and leadership. And so, there we go. I moved a little, I moved a little bit, you could say, I guess. So Oklahoma City to Austin, Austin to Houston, Houston to Washington, D.C., then to Boston, back to Austin, and then to Las Vegas. So in 2010, I moved back to Oklahoma City, and here's where I am.
Well, I tell you, you really never know. I heard at a conference one time, Mel Robbins, she said,
Yes.
a conversation can change your life. And I was thinking about, as you're telling this conversation with you and Jan, how that literally changed your life. Right?
Oh yeah, totally.
I mean, I can't imagine. I remember my mom back in the day having that big brick, big heavy brick phone. But I mean, you also had the courage to say, you know what, I'm going to do this, and I'm willing to. Of course, I'm in relocation, so that's a passion of mine. But you were willing to relocate, and had the courage to step out and just take a chance.
I think that, yeah, that's a big part of career and career path, and not everybody can relocate, right? I mean, I was single and fancy free, I guess you could say. And so moving was an option for me. And I think that a lot of people get really terrified when they think about, leaving their family, and it is a little scary, right? But the benefits of keeping an open mind and doing those things, I mean, I wouldn't be where I am today without all the people I have met across the United States, with the help of Jan, of course, but then also Nextel, and then went on to be Sprint. So.
Well, let's talk about that. One of the things I always like to talk about is the importance of mentors. I obviously, Jan sounds like she was a great mentor for you. Share a little bit about, some mentors that have impacted you in your career. What was it that stood out about them? And then do you mentor others now that you're in your position?
Yeah, absolutely. So, this question's a tough one, because I think you can learn from everybody that you meet, right? You can always learn the good, the bad. You take a little something from everybody. Jan, was important because not only did she give me my start, really, in my career, but also she taught me how to navigate the politics of business. And we can all appreciate that every business, no matter what you're in, big, small, has politics, right? So she really taught me how to do that and how to network, that it's really important to talk to people and get to know people and understand kind of everybody's got a different story. And so listen to their story and who they are. So that was really important. The second person is Susan O'Neill. She was a director of mine at Sprint, and Susan is a blast. She is hilarious, and when you first meet her, you're like, okay, is this lady kind of stuffy? What's going on here? She is amazing. Her daughter and I used to share Britney Spears CDs back when Britney Spears was a person. So when her daughter was in high school, it was actually pretty hilarious. But anyway, so she really taught me that clear is kind. Being clear with people and making sure you set the right expectations are very important. You set the tone as the leader. Susan is really good at setting the right tone. And then everyone has something to bring to the table. Diversity is actually a really great thing. And then the last, and you may say, well, how does this work? So the last person or people that I consider that has mentored me in my career is my Sprint training team. At one point, I had 18 trainers nationally, all across the United States. And those people, we work together, right? I may have been the conductor of the work, but they were really the instruments, and they taught me a lot about being a leader and how you support people and really encourage them to do their best.
So you were just talking about, so these people were part of your team, right? And so it's amazing how much you can learn like from your team. And I love what you talked about. I think you just referenced a Brene Brown drop, clear is kind. That is absolutely
Yes.
fantastic. I absolutely love that. And then today, do you have like I'm curious, in your organization, do you have like a mentorship program, or do you do any kind of mentoring?
I do. We don't have an actual mentor program, a formal mentor program, of course. We have some next gen leader programs and things like that. Myself, I do mentor people. I think mentoring is one of those things where if someone comes to you and they ask, right, mentoring shouldn't be something that's forced on someone. It has to be
Mm.
something that someone wants. I always, people that know me I always tell people that you have to be receptive, and you have to want to learn and to grow as a person, right? Someone, if they come to you and say, you will do this, you probably won't, because you're not going to tell me what to do. So if someone comes to me and they say, will you mentor me, or will you help me in my career? Uh, Absolutely, right? Because I've probably been there. And if I haven't been there, we'll work through it together.
I love that. I love that. Yes. Anyone who has that thirst, that hunger to
Yes.
get better, I'm first in line. I'll help
Yes.
because they want to get better. Hey, one of the things I always like to talk about, with my book Find Your Lane, I always like to ask people, how did they like when did they find their lane? When did they find that purpose? And so, you had this conversation with Jan, and then you navigated through this organization. And then today you're, a director of human resources. Was there a time that you knew this is it, this is what I want to do? Were they little moments, or was there epiphany? How did that happen?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and it can be a tough question, I think, sometimes, because there are little moments that happen, right? But I think the aha moment for me was receiving an email from an employee that shared with me how I impacted their life
Mm.
by um, not only their life, but also their career. I encourage them to go back to school. I encourage them to take some risk. We talked about me moving all over the place, right? They were terrified of leaving that comfort zone that they were in and doing something different, and so they did. And so they let me know that. And reading that email let me know, and the light bulb went off. It was like, okay, yeah, I can make a difference in people's lives. And I think as leaders, we have to realize that we do have impact on people. We have impact on people in good and bad ways, and we have to be aware of how we impact people. Um, I think Herb Kelleher, who was the former CEO of Southwest Airlines, probably said it best, that the business of business is people.
Mm.
And that's when I knew that the business of people was my passion. So.
I love that. You know, I've shared before on the podcast about whenever I like found my lane that, you know, when I joined Armstrong Relocation, when I helped a friend of mine. But, you know, even in the volunteer community, there was a time for me also when I found my lane, and it was similar. Like it wasn't an email, but it was a LinkedIn message,
Mhm.
and said, "Hey, just want to let you know I was at a conference." Said, "Hey, I just want to let you know we were on the bus that you got onto when you asked the bus driver his name and told him thank you. I just want you to know that impacted us." And I was like, people are watching, like they
Yes.
are watching us. And I just felt good about where I was in my volunteer leadership. And so when someone shares information like that, I always say feedback is a gift, right?
Yes.
Oh man,
Yes, it is.
that is fantastic. I love that. I love that. Well, let's talk leadership. Let's talk 2021. I mean,
Sure.
you know, one of the things I always talk about in order to move forward, sometimes we need to like just take a peek back at where we were and what were some lessons that we learned. And so I like to look back at 2020 because I know I'm in an incredibly tough year for all of us. But there were some silver linings. But one of the things I wanted to ask you to kind of kick this part off is, were there any silver linings as you look back in 2020 that you've kind of taken into 2021? Was there anything that stood out for you?
Mhm. You know, personally, I think 2020 and going into 2021, there was a lot of time to reflect, right? To reflect on a lot of different things. What's important to you? What do you really love? What is your
Mm,
passion? What do you, and I don't want to get sad on you, but what's going to be your legacy, right?
mm,
What is the legacy that you're going to leave behind? And it doesn't mean that when you're no longer on this earth, but what's the legacy you're going to leave behind when you retire or when you leave a company and move on? Uh, those are things that I believe that, 2020 gave us the time to do a little of that, even though it was busy, it was different, it was weird. To quote Taylor Swift, "Shake it off," right? But it was one of those times where we could take a breath for a second, even though we still had a lot going on.
yeah, no, it's so true. And one of the things, like I said, I wanted to really talk about today also was the importance of taking that time to reflect and just that well-being, that me time, and taking care of ourselves. And as I mentioned, I was on one of the Oklahoma City HRS presentations, and of course, you were presenting, and you did a fantastic
Oh,
job.
thanks.
Admire your leadership and your speaking and the way you present. But you talked about just like, hey, this is where we're at. So let me help you with some things that work for me. And I just thought that was just absolutely fantastic and incredible for a leader to say, hey, listen, I get it. I understand. So let's look at it together and let's see if maybe I can share a tip or two that might help you too. And so I was wondering if you could maybe just share just a few things around well-being, like how has it impacted you, and share a little bit about, some of the things you talked about and how it might help others.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think well-being is different for everybody, right? I mean, for me, and I'm using air quotes, it's about the sense of meaning or purpose, right? It's my ability to manage what's going on. It's about managing stress and all those different things. And it's even in simpler terms, it's doing the things you love doing while managing all the things that you need to get done.
Mm,
That's really what it's about. Um, managing stress, we're all stressed all the time, right? We have social media, news, and just, everything going on in the world that adds to the stress of being at work and home and all those things. So, being out of our element was a big part of 2020, right? If you're working from home and you usually go to the office and you've got the dogs and the kids at home and you're trying to lock yourself in a closet and work, which I've got a buddy that does that, trying to ignore everybody else in the house. So, it can be a stressor, but it's different stressors than we've had before. And so, self-care is kind of the buzzword for 2020, right? Is self-care. And so we have to look at what's important for us as leaders to be successful, to be the best mom, dad, brother that we can be. And so if you don't care for yourself, then you're going to get burnt out, you're going to get stressed out, and you're not going to be effective at what you need to get done. So, with that, I'll tell you some of the things I do. All right. Okay. So yeah. I try to stay busy as much as possible. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Netflix. I love HBO Max. I binge watch The Crown. I love me some TV time, but that only goes so far, right? You can only sit on the couch so long. And so I love to tinker and fix things around the house. I find it therapeutic, actually, to, maybe you need to paint a wall. I hate painting, but it is therapeutic, actually. I actually like doing it. And so, and believe it or not, I like doing the cut-in part. I don't like painting the wall. So give me a paintbrush and a can, I will cut it in for you, all right? So I love doing those types of things. In the warmer months, I ride my bike. You don't have to go buy $1,000, $2,000 bike. Go to Walmart and get $100 bike and just go and ride around your neighborhood. It's amazing the things that you see. It clears your mind. You can just relax. I also go to the gym. If I'm stressed out, it's been a crazy day, I'm going to get on the elliptical machine. I'm going to turn on some Whitney Houston or Linda Ronstadt, and I'm going to sweat my butt off. All right. I think that physical activity is really important. Not only is it great for your mind, it's great for your body. It keeps us sharp and engaged. And it's something that we need to do. So, otherwise, if you go to bed with all that stress built up, you're not going to get the rest you need. So it tires you out. So it's a good thing.
No, I love that. I started some different things, running and some different things. One of the questions I have for you, is a lot of people though, they're like, they're just, we're busy. We get up, we're busy. What are, do you think now that we're into 2021, here's my first question on this, and that is, do you think people are starting to apply more self-care now that we've kind of gone through 2020 and kind of learned from it? Or do you think people are continuing to miss opportunities, and what's something that, I don't know, what's something that someone that's listening or watching this right now, what's something that they can apply just to kind of build some momentum?
I think people are missing opportunities for self-care. I think people, so I'll say it like this. I think we are so electronic and digital that people forget the really simple things. I'm a pretty simple person, right? I like to keep it simple. So, maybe it's going to the park. Maybe it's you don't have to have a book. If you don't have, I understand some people have thrown all their books away. Maybe you have a tablet, right? Maybe you have a Kindle on your tablet, but go read in the park, right? And I know some places it's a little chilly to do that, but, maybe it is going for a drive. I remember as a kid that my aunt and uncle, my great aunt and uncle, actually, they would just show up at my grandparents' house on Sunday. It's like, oh, Okay. And they live 2 hours away, but they would just go for a drive.
Hmm.
I think we're missing some things that are really simple. It doesn't have to be a production, right? Self-care does not have to be this planned out on a piece of paper on your calendar production. Now, you may need to put it on your calendar to do it, but think in really simple terms and know that it doesn't have to be. Some of us are a little OCD, so it doesn't have to be that OCD moment, right? It can be really easy.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that I do as well is a journal, and
Yes,
just a simple, 5 minutes of journaling, like it just like clears your mind. Do you do any journaling?
I do. I do. So I journal typically Saturday. So I journal every day, but Saturdays I journal kind of the end of my week. I wrap up everything on Saturday mornings. We have we are very blessed to have a beautiful sunroom in our house, and so I will sit there with the dog, drink coffee, and if they're not in the middle of my lap, I will kind of journal my week, right, and kind of what happened. My grandmother was a big
Oh,
journaler. My mom has every well. I won't, so we call it journaling, right? Because that's what dudes call it. My grandmother would be more diary, right? But my mom has every diary of hers
oh,
probably for 30 or 40
mm.
years. And I use the word therapeutic a lot. It is therapeutic to sit and write your thoughts down and just think about what happened. And you can always go back and look, and that's a great thing that you can do as well. But it's a great way to, I guess you could say, dump everything that's in your
Mm.
brain onto a
Mm.
piece of paper,
Mm.
so that it is fine. It's flowing out of your brain so that you can clear it for other things.
I absolutely love that. I had Mandy Monk on the show a few weeks ago, and she talked about detox at the end
Yes.
of the day, writing everything down, dumping it on paper. That is a fantastic. Listen, folks, if you have your pen and your journal with you right, you need to be taking notes right now. This is gold coming from a top leader. I love that. One of the things you mentioned earlier is you talked about Netflix, and I was like, oh, where's he going with this Netflix? But you did write an article on LinkedIn, and one of the things I really enjoy about this podcast is I know many of my guests, but I get to go do even more research. And I noticed you wrote an article called
Yeah.
"Lessons from the Monarch," and it
Mhm.
was around the Crown episode on Netflix. And you talked a little bit about I think it was a Square Squad
Yes.
and cracks, right?
Yes. Yes.
And kind of a Brene Brown. Would you just share a little bit about what was that all about? Because I got to tell you, that is one way. We talked about writing things down, detox, dumping things. A way to give back when you can put your thoughts on paper to help someone else. Like I thought it was a fantastic article. Share a little bit about what the Square Squad's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully not to give anything away if someone has not watched The Crown, but season 3, the last episode. So you have the Queen, and then you have Princess Margaret, who is the Queen's sister, and she has tried to hurt herself, and the Queen comes to see her. And the Queen is not having a great day. Besides, Margaret has tried to do what she tried to do. The Queen is concerned that in the 25 years that she's been a monarch, that she really hasn't hit the mark, that the country is not really where it should be. And, um, you know, I'm totally Team Brene. So if you know me, you know I am Team Brene. And so Brene Brown talks about that in your Square Squad, you get basically a 1-inch square, and you put the name or the initials of the people that can tell you the truth in
Mm.
that square. And it's the good, the bad, the ugly. And it's what it is. It's those people that support you. But if they need to tell you that, hey, that's stupid, they're going to tell you that. And you can get mad at them all day long, and that's great, but that's what they're there for. They are not your cheerleaders, right? That's a different group of people. That's a different square, okay? But these folks are the people who see you for who you are, is how I put it. And so in this episode of The Crown, the Queen is expressing these concerns to Margaret, and Margaret essentially tells her that, as a leader, people look to you to hold it together. And if you show that you're falling apart, they will fall apart as well. And so it is important for us as leaders that, even though we are still in the midst of COVID-19 and all these other things, and that's going on in the world, we have to show our folks that it's going to be okay. It is going to be okay, and we have to keep that game face on, even though we may have challenges. And that's what the Square Squad's for. So if you have challenges, you go to the people in your Square Squad so that they'll tell you either to snap out of it or, yep, you're right, it sucks, but let's move on.
That is excellent. Excellent. I am going to, when we get done, I'm going to start making my squares. So important. Listen, folks, write that one down and reach out to people in your Square Squad. I would love to hear some feedback on that. I know Danny would like to hear that too. Thank you so much for sharing that. That is, man, that's great. That's great advice, especially for the time we're in. And so, okay, so before we navigate off this, give the folks, let's give them one well-being or one takeaway that we should think about, because this is being played in February, so we're Q1 of 2021. We're trying to build some momentum to really get off to a good start. What's one thing that someone should think about as far as some self-care for 2021?
Oh man, one thing I've been thinking about is, am I saving enough money to retire when I need to retire? That's one thing that I think about, because 2020, all right, we said it was a great year to reflect. So what's important in life, right? So are you doing what you love? Are you working for a company that you value? And, sometimes I think we do work wrong. We graduate from college, we go straight to work. We're in our best physical condition. We work for 40 years, then we retire. And then after 40 years, we're exhausted and we're not in our best physical condition. And now I want to see the world, but I can't get my walker down the jet bridge to the airplane, right? And so think about, are you doing the things that you really love? Are you saving money that you can spend when you retire? When do you want to retire? A lot of people will say, well, I can't retire till I'm 67. I call BS on that. You can retire when you want to retire, right? And so we have to consider in our lives, going back to that legacy, what legacy are we going to leave? And when do we want to retire to enjoy all the things that we want to enjoy before we leave this world?
Fantastic.
So that's what we need to think about as we are starting 2021.
That's fantastic. I love that. So one of the things I also like to do is I like to pull out, from leaders that have really just they make impact. I always like to learn something from them as far as their discipline, their daily leadership practices. Many of us seem to have something we do every day to keep us on track. And I was wondering, is there anything that you do every day? This is just who you are every day. You do this and it helps you stay on track?
Oh my goodness. Well, anybody that knows me would say that I am a very regimented individual. I go to bed and wake up at pretty consistent times. I am always on time, or I'm always early to appointments. Being late drives me crazy. I think my parents scarred me for life because of that. But anyway, that's a whole other story. In terms of practices, I would say that email was probably created by the devil himself.
Mm,
It's a tool to create havoc and make you non-productive.
mm, mm,
Everyone should really think before sending emails. Can you call somebody and just fix something that may take 5 minutes,
mm,
or should you go ahead and email them and going back and forth all day? Um, the phone still works.
mm.
I know it's 2021, but the phone actually does still work. You can hear somebody's voice on the other end. That is a big part of what I try to do every day is answer email maybe at the beginning of the day and the end of the day. It should not rule your day.
Mm,
And it creates this noise, right? It's just like email, text messages,
mhm.
social media, all those things that um, w- w- we need those to communicate, right? But it shouldn't take over your day. So if you can learn to control those things, and if you can think about how can I set aside time for this, either at the beginning or the end of the day, it will make your day so much better. It'll make you feel so much better because you won't feel overwhelmed and just like you know, you've got so much more to do because of all the noise.
Yeah, that's really good. I was looking at a quote as you were sharing that, and it's by Jesse Itzler. He is married to Sarah Blakely, who's the CEO of Spanx.
Yep.
And so he's a kind of an ultra marathon guy. But anyway, he says, learn to move past the distraction and you will succeed.
Yes.
And when you're talking about emails and social media and text, a lot of that is distractions, right? I mean, yes, we need to get to them, but in a more regimented way. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's going to be very
Absolutely.
helpful for some people that are trying to, they're all thinking, hey, what is something you do that I can do? Maybe I can try this. And then I always like to say, then you just got to find your lane. Try it. If it works for you, that's great. If it doesn't, okay, try something else. And so that's fantastic. Okay, I've got one more question.
Okay.
That before we go into it's time to accelerate, and that is this. I always like to ask: did you ever receive any advice that it was so good that you find yourself giving that to others?
Go to dinner when they ask.
Hmm.
So I will tell you that I worked for a VP years ago, and some folks had come into town from headquarters, and the person had asked if I wanted to go to dinner with them, and so I was quick to say, "Oh no, I've got something else going on, or I've got plans," and my director at the time quickly corrected me by saying, "Well, you've got to eat. I'm sure you can go to dinner with us." And then that next morning, he said to me, "You always go to dinner, always."
Mm.
It's about networking and building relationships. And even if you go to dinner and you don't have anything to say, right? You just sit and listen. You can learn a lot at dinner.
Mm.
That is probably, I think, so I'll go out on a limb here a little bit. I think that social media and texting and all these things have made us a little bit antisocial. Okay,
Mm.
maybe a lot
Mm-hmm. Right.
antisocial. And so when people say, let's go to dinner, you're like, no, I don't really have anything to talk to you about. I'll text with you, but don't ask me to go to dinner. And that goes for work folks, right? And if you go to dinner with somebody, not only are you networking, you're building that relationship, you're building trust with somebody because they're going to get to know you. And by just having that conversation, and we have forgot, I think as a society, that it is about relationships and trust and learning about each other because we're all different. And so it's about appreciating each other.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. Yes, it's all about people. It's always been about people, and it's always going to be about people. I've built some of the best relationships with, I mentioned Oklahoma City HRS earlier, many of the chapters in Oklahoma City, but through Oklahoma HR, through the conference, and not just at the conference, but going to dinner at night with many of the volunteer leaders. And we've become good friends. I mean, those conversations are just a little bit different, aren't they? And so
yes, they are.
That is great. Oh, that's great advice. Oh man, I cannot wait till we get through this stuff we're going through so we can have dinner. Yes. Okay, so we're gonna. We're coming to the end of the show. Man, I got to tell you, time just flies by. But we're gonna go through what I call it's time to accelerate for some fun facts. So first question I have for you is: would you rather read a book or would you rather listen to a podcast?
Well, I don't want to offend any of the pod people that may be listening today, but I'm going to have to say book.
Fantastic. And I know you mentioned Brene Brown earlier. Any favorites in mind?
Oh gosh, Dare to Lead, of course, is a favorite. I think that Brene, not only is the research there, but the way she presents things is so usable. Yeah, that you can learn a lot.
Yeah, so good, so good. Hey, what are you most excited about in 2021?
Oh my gosh, I have a nephew that turned a year old, December 7th. I have not seen him, I've seen him through a window, but haven't been able to hang out with him. So I am ready for vaccines. I am ready for COVID to come to an end so that, I can go and I bought him a tricycle. So hopefully when he's ready to start riding that tricycle, I can be there for it.
Start them early. I love it. I love it. Hey, what are you most grateful for?
Oh gosh, I think my family. I mean, I'm grateful for a ton of things, but my family. I don't think you realize how grateful you are for them until you can't see them for 9 months or more. And so, my family.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So, man, you're a pretty energetic guy. What really energizes you?
Red Bull with fruit punch flavor, possibly with some vodka if it's an adult beverage. Okay, but great one-on-one conversations, right? Other people who are passionate about what they do. I mean, that's why I love you, Bruce, is because you are so passionate about what you do and about people and making a difference in people's lives, because that is why we've been put on this earth, is to do that.
Danny, I appreciate that, man. Okay, I have a final question. This is probably my favorite question I like to ask the guests on the show. And here's the question. Danny, 10 years older, he's knocking at your door and you answer that door. What's he saying to you?
I hope you were brave. That's what he says.
That's fantastic. Well, I think you're pretty brave, and I admire your leadership and just getting to know you over the years. And I just want to say thank you for sharing your perspective and your wisdom on the show for all of our listeners. If someone wanted to follow you or learn a little bit more about you, how is the best way that they could connect?
Yeah. So they can find me on LinkedIn, of course, Danny Bogard, Bogard. A lot of people use the T, that's Humphrey. I am with the D as in Danny. So that's how you can remember it. Or they can email me. They can just email me at danny@dannybogard.com.
But he's only going to check it in the morning or in
That's
the
right.
afternoon.
Only in the
Don't
morning.
wait
That's
by your
right.
computer. I love it. This has been a fantastic time just having conversation with you. It's been very energetic. I'm energized from this conversation, and I just want to say thank you for being on the show and sharing your perspective. And for anyone that's listening, if you enjoy the show, I would love for you to go out to Apple and review the show. Give us a 5-star and share it with your friends, because I like to say all the time, listen, this is more than a podcast. So Danny, thank you for doing this. And more importantly, thank you for your friendship, brother.
You bet. Thank you.
Hey, can't wait to share this. We'll talk to you later.
Okay. See you soon.